often think about who I would be if my mom wasn't dead. And honestly, I don't think that I would be the same person that I am today. Not because losing my mom was good, but because grief really changed me. There are parts of me that are only parts of me because I experienced loss. And as uncomfortable as it is for me to say, I don't believe that I would possess those qualities if my mom were still alive. Today, I want to talk about the ways that grief has changed me, the good ways, the bad ways, the ugly ways, the unfamiliar ways, all the ways that grief has changed me. Because at the end of the day, no matter how hard you try to not let it, grief is going to change you. There's no way around it. But I do believe that there is power behind what you do with that change. By the end of today's episode, I hope that you are able to see that if grief has changed you, it's not always for the worst. By the end of today's episode, I hope that you feel less alone in the fact that grief is going to change you, because that's just a part of it. I also hope that you're able to see that there are so many good things that you can do with that change. Let's talk about it. Before my mom died, I thought that life was pretty much guaranteed. All right. I'm very fortunate to say the following. I didn't really experience any type of loss until my mom died when I was 25 years old. I lost my great grandmother when I was like 12, maybe, but she was like old. She was like 99 and she didn't speak much English. I love her. Shout out mama. But I didn't know her. I'm very grateful and very blessed to say that hardship for me was very few and far between. I'm grateful for that. I'm very privileged to say that. I'm aware. Like, I even had all four of my grandparents up until about 2 years ago when I lost my grandmother, right? And that was after my mom died. So the most traumatic loss that I experienced was my mom at 25 years old. And before losing her, I always thought there was more time. I think that's pretty universal, we can all say. You don't really understand the lack of time until you recognize the lack of time. Like, you always think that there's going to be more conversations. You think there's going to be more birthdays, more holidays. You think that the next one's going to come up just like it did the year before. And then you experience loss. And it completely shifts the way that you see time. And after my mom died, I became hyper aware of how temporary everything is. I make sure I say I love you more, and I show up to things that might be seen as inconvenient. I call people more. And grief really taught me that life is temporary and you only have one. What is it, YOLO? You only live once. That's shout out Drake Day. Drake dropped like 3 albums today. Hey. Anyways, grief really taught me that life was not guaranteed and time is not guaranteed. And so what you do with that time and what you do with that experience together is important. If my mom hadn't have died, I don't think that I would have looked at life in that way. I don't think I would have looked at time in that way. Before my mom died, I really looked at life like it was every day is the next day. The next day is going to come. Everything's going to happen. Now I look at it like, I'll tell you guys a quick story. Recently at my corporate job, we had to do a 5-year plan. Like, where do you see yourself at the company in 5 years? And I respectfully looked at my boss and was like, I don't think that I can even look 6 hours into the future, let alone 5 years. Like, you're asking me about 5 years in the future? What do you mean? I don't know. I watched my mom die, dude. Like, what do you mean 5 years into the future? Be for real. But that's how I look at time now. It's so different. Like, before that, I would have been like, oh, 5 years, I hope to be this, and that. And of course, you still have hope to be. Like, I do hope for a lot of things in my future. And you can still hope for the future, but you just look at the future a little bit differently. And you know that you can hope for things all you want, but it's never going to be 100% guaranteed. Before loss, I also valued things very differently, right? Like, I valued people's time very differently. I valued people's present very differently. I valued so many things so differently. I used to care so much about things that just don't matter. I gave so many things value. I gave so many relationships value where that value wasn't necessarily warranted. And what loss has taught me is that you really have to be strategic with where you give your energy and where you give your time, because like I said before, that time is not guaranteed, right? So it helps you feed out relationships. Like, I'm at a point now where I'm not going to give you my time or my space or my energy if it's not reciprocated, or if there's not if it's not doing anything for me. If I'm not doing things for you and you're not doing things for me, like, why are we in a relationship to each other? You know what I mean? That was a really hard thing for me too, is like a lot of my friends were no longer my friend after I lost my mom. not because I don't love them. I still have so much love for them, but they're just not the right person for me as I am now. And that's something that I really experienced after loss too, that the version of me before gave so many people so much time and so much energy, and I cared about minor surface level things. Now, like I said, I'm strategic with my time. I care more about how I show up for people. Before my mom died, I used to not wrap presents. I would get people presents, like for Christmas forever, I would just give people the gift. Like, I would be the last person to give anyone their gift because I didn't wrap it. And I would go upstairs and get all the gifts and then like divvy them out. And now I wrap presents because I know that that's like an important part of giving someone a gift. I, I know that's so crazy, but like after my mom died, it made me recognize that like those little things matter for people. And I'll say this too, is like if my mom was still alive, I do believe that I would eventually like learn those things for myself, obviously. Okay, but grief really like prolonged that for me. It made it come up a lot faster and a lot quicker in my life than people usually see it. And for that, I'm really grateful. I had a conversation with the guy at a coffee shop the other day, shout out Eric, and it was like a really amazing conversation just about life. And he looked at me and he was like, wow, like that's profound. You're so young. How do you have that perspective? And I was like, I watched my mom die. And he was like, oh. And I was like, yeah, I know. It's just like you experience loss so close and you just recognize so much about life. And it was just like a profound conversation. And it was amazing to chat with him because he made me recognize so many ways that I've grown in myself. And it was just really cool. But all that to be said, it really changes the way that you value things. You value things a little differently. And I value things differently from before and after loss. Grief also made me really afraid. I used to not be afraid. Okay, I was afraid of like nuanced. I was always afraid, but grief made me afraid in a way that's very different. Grief made me afraid of loss. It made me afraid of the uncertainty of the future. I used to just like kind of aimlessly walk around and just like not really think too much about it. I miss not having to think too much about it, but I used to just like not really think about it that much. Now I'm thinking about everything. All right, grief made me afraid. It made me afraid of getting close to people again because I know how quickly they can be taken away. And before, I used to never think about that. I would have never thought about that. But now you kind of have to, you know? For a long time, grief made me really cold and bitter. I think that that's a part of it. But eventually you recognize, oh, I have to carry this for the rest of my life. This is something that's not going away. It's just like having a colleague that's not going to go away. You either learn to work with it or every day you go to work, it's miserable. So look at grief that way. I'm going to carry this for the rest of my life. How can I make this make me a better person? And I shifted from allowing grief to harden me and to make me bitter into allowing it to soften me. I remember being really pissed off about my mom dying. Of all the people and all the things, my mom died via heart attack. For real. Okay, I was pissed. In the midst of being pissed off about that, darkness is the prominent thing. So when darkness is the prominent thing, it's really easy to only see darkness in front of you. The negative pieces of your life are going to be at the forefront because you're already in the darkness. But once you realize that you have a choice to bring light into that darkness, things start to shift. I remember I started to let loss make me more loving instead of more avoidant because I recognized how much people need love. All I wanted through my loss was to feel the sense of love that my mom gave me. And so I recognize that loss can make you more avoidant, and it will make you more avoidant. But you have the choice to allow it to make you more loving and to love people better and to show up for people more. I also started allowing for the loss to make me more compassionate instead of judgmental because several times during my deep grief, I was met with judgment where I so badly needed compassion. Now I see that as the forefront. You never know when somebody needs something and you have the opportunity to be the best part or the worst part. So allow for grief to show you that the world needs more compassion because you never know what someone's going through. You really don't. I talk about crying in the middle of Target all the time. If you if you haven't heard that story, listen to probably any other episode that I've put out and I talk about it. But it's just important that you allow grief to soften you. Another thing, too, is I started letting loss make me more honest opposed to more performative. And I've talked about this before, but it's easy to attempt to perform when you're in the deep grief of it all because everyone around you, you want to make sure everyone around you is more comfortable. But when you remove the performance of it and you start to be more honest, that's when grief really starts to shift people's perspective and really starts to give the outside world that might not know grief as much a really deep glimpse into what it's like. And that's when the conversation starts to shift for us, right? And so let grief make you better. Take the hurt and the darkness in it and figure out the opposite of it. You always say, there's not light without darkness, darkness without light, right? We hear that often, but there's not honesty without performance. And there's not, judgment without compassion, right? There's opposite ends of both of those things. And so understand that if you're in a state of one thing, you can be in the state of another. It's up to you to get there. I think about my dad a lot when I have this conversation because I know it's been really hard for him to find anything positive ever since my mom died. But I often try to encourage him that there's no way that this is what the rest of your life is going to look like, right? There's no way that this was what was put on the rest of your life. And the before me would have never saw my dad in this way. The before me would have never been able to encourage my dad to find positivity. I would have not cared. If I could go back in time and talk to the girl before, I would tell her just hold on, ride the wave, and understand that you were loved so deeply by your mom that there's no way that you could have not found this perspective in this loss because she gave it to me. It's just a matter of me allowing the space for it to come in and to replace the darkness. A few ways that you can allow for that shift to start happening is to, number one, acknowledge the fact that grief is going to change you. Of course, grief made you different. Duh. Duh. You've seen some things now. Of course, you're different. It's a part of it. It's a beautiful part of it. The goal isn't to find the person that you were before. My goal isn't to find the girl that I was if my mom was still alive. She's gone. The goal is to understand the pieces of her that I can bring forward into the next person that I am. I would also encourage you to pay attention to what grief is teaching you. It's always teaching you something. Pay attention to it. And with every day that you rewire your brain to look for those things through grief, it becomes the more dominant thing over the darkness. The light becomes more dominant over the darkness with every day that you attempt to look for it. So do that. Another way is choose intentionally who you become. You have a choice. If no one's told you yet, you have a choice in who you become. My hope for you is that you become a version of yourself that your loved one would be proud of. Anyways, depending on where you're listening from, YouTube, make sure you subscribe, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening, make sure that you follow and subscribe to our channels. It really helps us to know who's here and where you're listening from. And I am so proud of you. I say it and I'll say it again. Grief is hard. It's so hard. It's so hard, but we're doing it. And I'm very grateful to be doing it together. If you're not having a good day today, that's okay. There's always tomorrow. And every day is a day to heal. All right. Talk to you soon. Love you. Bye.